Annihilation left me empty. Not in the sense that it's inconclusive. There's a beginning and an end, and it's chock full of ideas, metaphors, and underlying meaning, with nice flourishes and visual concepts. But there's no developmental substance. None of these women bond or grow together, and the opening scene spoils the fates of all of their characters, killing the tension for me. Additionally, the film thinks flashback revelations are a substitute for the main character's arc, and it raises interesting questions with no intention of answering or even just debating them. Instead of building character or exploring its ideas, the majority of the runtime is dedicated to people standing or sitting motionless in open environments with blank, dull expressions on their faces. These scientists and friends rarely talk about their current predicament, discoveries, or check on each other's well-being, or speak at all for that matter. There's inappropriate laughs, a couple of worthwhile scary scenes, and a unique climax. Then it ends with sequel bait. And all of this lack of suspense, humanity, and progression meant I really felt the slow pacing. Annihilation is boring. This review will contain spoilers for Acts 1 and 2. A timestamp for my star rating and pros cons chart is in the description. Annihilation begins with a strange object falling from space and crashing inside of a lighthouse, causing odd prismic anomalies. 3 years later, Lena, a biology instructor / tumor cell specialist, is still grieving the loss of her husband, Kane, a special forces man who's been missing in action for 12 months. Just as she's beginning to move on with her life, Lena is taken to a secret facility where a mysterious woman named Dr. Ventress reveals that the answer to what happened to Lena's husband lies beyond the Shimmer, a giant, ever-expanding prismic biofield, which will eventually engulf the entire Earth. Its origin? The lighthouse. Kane was a member of one of the many secret military groups sent within the colorful wall, never to return. Lena agrees to help Dr. Ventress and her ragtag group of scientists and doctors on their expedition inside the alien domain. What awaits the team on the other side? Will Lena find closure or certain annihilation? Allow me to describe the opening scene. Smash cut to Lena, sitting inside a sterile, deadly quiet interrogation chamber. Pause on her for an awkward amount of time, assuming that she's alone. Hard cut to a profile shot, revealing a bunch of scientists silently standing on the other side of glass. Their blue hazmat suits, non-existent facial expressions, and mannequin swiftness causes me to snicker. I get it. Apprehensive alien detachment. Cool. Another abrupt cut. There are 3 scientists in the interrogation room, just standing there weirdly, almost frozen in time. I hold back laughter, wondering what the hell is going on. Then, cut to a Wes Anderson-style flat-angle medium shot of the lead scientist. He breaks the tension. You hungry? I slightly lose it. Such great, serious comedic timing. Lomax is the scientist's name, and he proceeds to question Lena about everything that will happen in the movie. We run down a checklist of characters the audience hasn't even met yet, as Lena states emotionlessly, dead, killed, I'm not sure. Please tell me the editor and director fought over the decision to put this in the movie. Who would leave this in? How hard is it to have Lomax ask, what happened to the others? And then just cut backwards in time? Half the fun of editing is posing questions and teasing the answers for later on, so the viewer has a reason to keep watching. Isn't that the whole point of starting the movie with a scene from the end of the movie? To make the audience wonder how we got here and what will happen? Indeed, most of Annihilation is a flashback, but the odd story structure goes deeper, as Lena has flashbacks and dreams within the flashback. More on that later. I suppose the logic in this opening scene is the fates of the characters are not the point of the movie. Okay, but now all the tension relies on dramatic irony. The audience knows that all the characters, besides Lena, will either die or go missing. The only way to make the film suspenseful is to endear us to the characters so much that the inevitability of their death has us on the edge. Annihilation does the opposite. Almost all the actresses are monotonous, cold, and detached. First, Dr. Ventress, the leader of the secret project. What a waste of Jennifer Jason Leigh, who was having such a great time in The Hateful Eight just a few years ago. Here, she was paid to be disinterested. Our introduction to her, as she first meets Lena, portrays her as so bored with her job and the conversation at hand that she finds more entertainment in her cuticles. What a coincidence! I was looking around my theater auditorium for points of interest several times during the movie because I was bored too. I retroactively think I related to Dr. Ventress the most. She's a broken psychologist slash businesswoman who just wants to get out of the office and go on an adventure. Though, Damargu has a secret. I should note that at this point, less than 15 minutes into the movie, 2 separate individuals were already snoring in my theater. It was an early afternoon showtime. Luckily, the people with them woke them up within minutes. The rest of the team is composed of Josie, the radiologist slash physicist, Sheppard, I'm not sure, and Thorensen, the medic. Josie is a shy, hands in the sweater sleeves young woman with glasses. Sheppard is perceptive and looks after everyone else. And Thorensen is the only person in the film with a personality. Played enthusiastically by Gina Rodriguez, she breathes life into the film anytime she has dialogue. Thorensen's a butch, lesbian tomboy, not afraid to voice her opinions and show emotion. Based on the performances around her, I assume her casting was a fluke. But then the movie paints her in a negative light later on, because she's the only member of the group who values her own life. I'd be annoyed too if I had to hang out with the rest of these ladies in a hostile landscape for weeks on end. Lastly, the main character, Lena, played by Natalie Portman, a grieving widow who wants to know what happened to her husband Kane, played by Oscar Isaac. Without spoiling anything, Lena does find out Kane's fate before she even enters the Shimmer, making her motivation to go in dubious. It's hard to explain without giving too much away, but trust me, they give Lena a very good reason to stay behind. She has closure. It would have been more effective if Lena knew nothing about what happened to her husband before entering the Shimmer. If Dr. Ventress had just brought her to the facility as a good faith gesture, so Lena could find peace and answers. In the actual film, Lena sort of has the answers already, and she goes into the Shimmer because she wants details, and she's a curious biologist, I guess. But highly trained military men have entered the Shimmer and never returned. Speaking of which, why an all-woman team? Perhaps the movie was moving too slow for me to care to follow along, but was there a reason given? All the men weren't getting it done? Why? By the end of the film, I had a hard time believing none of the sharp-minded military men could think of the things Lena does. More importantly, the Shimmer is a global threat. Send in a whole frickin' army! Plow the road to that lighthouse! I get the whole Mother Nature, preserving the environment, scientific study angle, but not when this thing is a threat to all of humanity. Okay, that's not the story Annihilation wants to tell. I went with it. An all-lady team is a nice change of pace, even if the film doesn't justify it. They're a bunch of Ghostbusters with automatic rifles. Busting caps makes me feel good. Cool. I figure that there is a purpose to them being all women, and that is half right. During a leisurely boat ride, after having been attacked by a giant water creature in the same river, they must have been fairly confident that there was only one of them, Sheppard reveals to Lena that all of the ladies on the expedition have tragic backstories. A light bulb went off in my head. This is what the movie will be about. The ill-fated expedition will act as an allegory for a woman's therapy group. Lena is going to get to know the other ladies, and their deadly surroundings will create an urgency to express themselves, working through their past traumas together, just as they're working through the wilderness together. One of them is even a psychologist. Brilliant! Except that doesn't happen. The backstory that Sheppard provides Lena turns out to be a begrudging attempt to make us feel bad for the bland characters. The majority of the ladies' interactions are cold, dispassionate, generic observations with awkward pauses. Is that the old mess hall? Yep. Did she go down here? I'm not sure. What is that? I don't know. It clearly used to be a human, and it now has some sort of disturbing plant mutation. If I can describe it in words, how come these scientists can't? As usual, scientists don't act like scientists, taking proper precautions or theorizing. I've grown used to that. My greater concern is that they don't act like human beings either. This results in inappropriate laughs when bad things abruptly happen to these boring, lifeless zombies. Early on, the ladies are investigating a sinking boathouse. Josie walks out of it. Dr. Ventress asks, "Anything interesting in there?" I chuckle to myself thinking, I hope so. Josie responds robotically with a blank expression. "Nope." I snicker some more. Then, "Whoa!" She snatched into the doorway with brilliant comedic timing. I laugh loudly in the theater. When someone is attacked in Annihilation, instead of, "Oh no, someone save her!" I'm like, "Good, something is happening. Haha, get her!" The film can come off at times like a cheesy horror movie, watching lackadaisical, unlikable people being picked off one by one, except the pacing is drawn out, and I don't think that's what the film was going for. Still, there are a couple of legitimately frightening scenes, and there's a shot of brief gore. What Lena encounters towards the end of the movie is quite mesmerizing and unnerving. As well, there is a disturbing confrontation with a giant mutated bear that might keep you up at night. Though, once again, I laughed at the way the creature was trolling and playing with the characters. However, most of the running time is not scary. It's dedicated to long shots of ruined buildings with overgrowth, jungle trekking, colorful flowers and fauna, and CGI plant-animal hybrids. The characters are walking through a beautiful post-apocalyptic wasteland. Then, the movie will abruptly cut back to the opening interrogation scene, so it can over-explain what we are seeing, or to tell us more spoilers about what to expect next in the expedition. The only way I can justify these inserts is to speculate that the filmmakers were worried that the audience would be thinking, "That's it?" and want to turn the film off early. So these interrogation scenes are the movie advertising the rest of itself, making the case for the viewer to keep watching. Lena pretty much tells Lomax that the mutations do get more interesting. Bear with her and the movie. On top of those atmosphere-breaking flash-forwards, Annihilation also frequently has flashbacks and dream sequences showing Lena and Kane's relationship. A scene of Lena teasing Kane and being subsequently tickled was charming and the most relatable, endearing scene in the film. But it all does not feel directly connected to what's happening on the expedition. Lena never opens up to anyone about these visions, dreams, and feelings she's having, bottling it up instead. The film's plot is incredibly straightforward, and these cutaways to the interrogation scene and Lena's married relationship serve to only confuse and disorient the viewer, much like how the Shimmer itself confuses and disorients the ladies. Sometimes there's an underexplored idea that the prism is affecting the ladies' minds, giving them independent hallucinations, but this is not properly set up. There's no scene of one or two of the ladies seeing something that the others can't. They all see something trippy early on and are relieved that the others saw it too. But for no reason, they speculate that the Shimmer is playing tricks on their minds. Why? They all saw it. The only evidence the film presents is that all the ladies have short-term memory loss, not remembering setting up their camp. But does that logically mean that they are hallucinating as well? Then, later on, a teammate is freaking out about how she couldn't see the bear, and she can't trust the other ladies anymore. It was pitch black, and you were across the field. No duh, you couldn't see the giant black bear. Without proper precedent, this plot element felt like a really forced way to add conflict within the group. Annihilation's structure and pacing is adding unnecessary complexity. There are movies that are too quick to resonate or follow, and on the opposite end, there are those too slow for the content they contain, and their large gaps between important moments make it hard for the viewer to connect with their characters and their events. Annihilation is in the latter category. Moreover, it is so slow and telegraphing its punches, giving me so much time to think, but very little to think about. I was always one step ahead. Things click. Oh, I get it. This is what is going on and where this is going. Okay, hurry things up so I can start paying attention again. The editing does not know how to hold back information to maintain interest. If I know the fate of the characters and I'm constantly slightly ahead of the plot, then all that is left is surface level enjoyment. But I don't like any of these characters. The motionless visuals aren't interesting enough to hold my attention, and the pacing is super stretched out. What is the story about, you ask? Lena coming to terms with the role she played in her deteriorating marriage. From what I gathered, the expedition is an allegory for the sad, empty state of her and Kane's relationship, which still had beautiful potential. Lena must learn to forgive a part of herself that pushed Kane away. The flashbacks and dream sequences slowly reveal the details of their relationship throughout the film, but this wasn't sufficiently satisfying for me. Learning Lena's backstory is good, and knowing that these thoughts are in the back of her mind during the expedition is appreciated. However, how does Lena grow from point A to point B? Lena's backstory is acting as a stand-in for her character development, slowly doling out more information about their past relationship to the audience and creating a sense of progression. Was Lena slowly working out her issues in her own head? What is it about the expedition itself that was inspiring her or helping her to deal with her emotions? Just the death and emptiness around her? There's a brief talk with Dr. Ventress about people's tendencies toward self-destructive behavior due to feelings of unworthiness. That is an interesting setup, but how does Lena find her self-worth? Lena never bonds with the other women who, all having dark pasts of their own, could have helped each other to grow and accept things about themselves. Have some chats about feelings. Speculate, relate, joke, express your fears, learn about one another. Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle did this so much better. That film had characters trekking through a jungle, learning about and criticizing one another, and giving advice to help each other grow. Plus, it's upbeat and family friendly. Annihilation has 2 meaningful conversations between characters which only set up for progression. Then, none comes. Lena just has a realization at the end of the movie, which doesn't seem correlated to the real-life journey she went on. This is why the scene of Sheppard explaining the ladies' backstories ends up feeling like a cheap way to evoke sympathy. Because the film never intends to do anything with the ladies' backgrounds. They are kill fodder for spectacle. If Dr. Ventress and Lena went on the journey without the others, nothing much would have been lost. The movie is all about Lena. Most of the other women have no impact on her, besides a, reaction. Okay, looking deeper, the women may provide the 5 stages of grief for Lena, or something about acceptance. The metaphor alone didn't resonate with me. Filmmaking is another potential allegory. There's an idea presented here that creation of something new doesn't necessarily mean the destruction of something old, and that what we see on the screen doesn't have to reflect our reality, but it can instead rearrange and refract familiar elements, introducing the audience to new concepts and perspectives, and creating positive change in the world. Nice. Except, the Shimmer really is destroying the human world to create its own rainbow land. The movie wonders, is that such a bad thing? Well, Annihilation is pretty biased, presenting only broken, bland, depressed, and emotionless people. It's a straw man argument. All of these characters feel soulless. Sure, if you hang around these women long enough, you'll feel the Earth isn't worth saving. That does not mean there aren't energetic, charismatic, kind-hearted, loving, and family-oriented people that deserve to live. Annihilation postulates that a pretty, though hollow and heartless imitation of our reality should have equal consideration for survival compared to human beings. And it brings up a science versus religion angle between Lena and Kane, respectively. If you have a more pessimistic, nihilistic, or atheistic perspective on life, maybe you'll enjoy this movie more than I did. I'm not knocking you for it. Maybe I wasn't in the correct mood as well. I don't know, maybe. But I'm frankly not interested in deeper meanings unless I first care about the movie itself. I value characters, story, editing, writing, all of which are in awkward supply here. I personally appreciated director Alex Garland's Ex Machina far more. That film also raised questions about the nature of humanity and the importance of our consciousness, but it fully explored its ideas with charismatic and three-dimensional characters. I understood their superficial goals and their underlying desires. Ex Machina made me more emotionally invested in an artificial intelligence than Annihilation did in real people. Annihilation is packed with questions and ideas, challenges to beliefs, some horror, action, and psychedelic visuals and color correction. I just didn't care about the characters because they were expressionless, detached, and didn't care about themselves or each other. It is dragged out to feature length when it may have been better as a 45-minute anthology episode. Then the movie concludes open-ended. Apparently it's an adaptation of the first novel in a trilogy. Shrug. It did not make me angry. I was just really, really bored and felt empty. Annihilation is a contradiction, simultaneously deep and shallow, intellectual in its ideas, but unengaging in its storytelling fundamentals. I give Annihilation 2 out of 5 stars. Was a member of one of the many secretary. Busting caps makes me feel good. It was Pitch Black, honey. Crap, don't do that. People aren't gonna like that, yeah.